What it do, YouTube? B. Kelly back again with another banger. Today's video is going to be about the fall of RG3, the former Heisman winner. RG3 was born on February 12, 1990 into a military family in Okinawa, Japan. They would move around quite a bit, but eventually in 1997 they'd settle in Copperas Cove, Texas. At Copperas Cove High School, RG3 was a three-sport star in basketball, football, and track. RG3 was the starting quarterback for the school for 2 seasons. In his junior year, he passed for 2,001 yards with 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, while rushing for 876 yards with 8 touchdowns. He received first-team All-District 16 4A honors after that season. In his senior season, he rushed for 1,285 yards along with 24 rushing touchdowns, and he threw 1,356 yards with 16 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He finished his high school career on the varsity level as a starter with 2,161 yards, 32 touchdowns of rushing, while throwing 3,357 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. But he never did win a championship. He lost 2 state championships. After an amazing high school football career at Copperas Cove High School, RG3 was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school and was the 6th best dual-threat quarterback in the nation and the 42nd best player in the state of Texas in the 2008 class. RG3 was getting recruited by Stanford, Tennessee, Kansas, Nebraska, Houston, Tulsa, Illinois, Washington State, and Oregon. And he originally committed to Houston to play for then head coach Art Briles. But Briles left Houston to take the head coaching position at Baylor, which led to RG3 switching his commitment and signing a letter of intent to play for Baylor. Another big thing that got RG3 to go to Baylor was that he could be on the track and field team, which was a top program at the time. Before we talk about his football career at Baylor, we gotta talk about his really good career on the track team. During his time with Baylor on the track team, he finished in first place in the 400-meter hurdles in the Big 12 Conference Championship and the NCAA Midwest Regional Championship meets. He also broke the NCAA Midwest Regional 400-meter hurdles record. He placed 3rd in the NCAA meet and also participated in the U.S. Olympic trials. In RG3's freshman year at Baylor, he would have a really solid season, especially for a true freshman. He completed 60% of his passes through 2,091 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Even though RG3 had a really good season, the team went 4-8 and went 2-6 in Big 12 play. But RG3 did earn Big 12 Conference Offensive Freshman of the Year honors. RG3 had a lot of hype going into his sophomore year at Baylor, but his season was short-lived even though he played very good. He only played 3 games before sustaining a torn ACL. In those 3 games, he played very well, completing 65% of his passes, throwing 481 yards and 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. In RG3's redshirt sophomore season, since he had to take a medical redshirt, he played even better. He completed 67% of his passes, threw a career high of 3,501 yards with 22 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Not to mention the team went 7-6 and saw their first bowl game action of RG3's career, and they won their bowl game. After RG3's really good redshirt sophomore campaign at Baylor, he was a semifinalist for the Walter Campbell Player of the Year Award and a semifinalist for the Maxwell Award. Going into RG3's redshirt junior year at Baylor, nobody was really expecting them to do much damage in the Big 12, a really good Big 12 at the time, but they were wrong. RG3 beasted this season. He even won the Heisman this season, and for good purposes too. He completed 72% of his passes, he threw 4,293 yards with 37 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. Baylor would end up finishing in 3rd place in the Big 12 that season, a high with RG3, which was very good for the team, and RG3 would help the team get the most wins while he was there that season in his Heisman winning year. They went 10-3 that year, winning the Alamo Bowl against Washington. Not to mention, this would finish off RG3's really impressive college career. Because of such an impressive 2011 campaign with Baylor, RG3 was up for many awards and even won some awards himself. He was a semifinalist for the Maxwell Award, finalist for the Werfel Trophy, finalist for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, finalist for the Walter Campbell Player of the Year Award. He was a consensus All-American, a Manning Award winner, a Davey O'Brien Award winner, Associated Press College Football Player of the Year winner, and the Heisman Trophy winner. After an amazing 2011 season, RG3 declared for the 2012 NFL Draft, where he was selected with the second overall pick by the Washington Redskins. RG3 had a really good rookie campaign, starting 15 games for the Redskins, and he had a 9-6 record as a starting quarterback in the regular season. He completed 66% of his passes, threw 3,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. But we can't ignore RG3's rushing stats either. He had 815 rushing yards with 7 touchdowns on the season, averaging a solid 6.8 yards a carry. Unfortunately, a start of a lot of the problems RG3 had as a Redskin started in his rookie year in Week 14 against the Baltimore Ravens, where he had a hit on his knee from Halotai Nagata, and it hit him right in his knee and twisted it in the process. Fortunately, he only had a grade 1 LCL sprain, and he would come back Week 16, not fully healthy, but he would still beat the Redskins, and people thought when they were playing the Seattle Seahawks in the wildcard game that year, they thought it was controversial that he was playing. He even played with a big brace on his knee, and unfortunately, after a pretty rough game with the Seahawks, he sustained a torn LCL and ACL, and it was one of the most gruesome injuries in football. Despite a gruesome way to end his rookie year, RG3 won the 2012 NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year award and was named to the PFWA All-Rookie team, and he was even voted to be a part of the 2013 Pro Bowl. But since he was hurt, he couldn't go to it, and Drew Brees took his spot. Going into the 2013 NFL season, RG3 did not play a single preseason game, but he still debuted in the season opener against the Philadelphia Eagles. RG3 only played 13 games this season because he was shut down early because the Redskins were already out of playoff contention, and Mike Shanahan wanted to play Kirk Cousins at the time. RG3 had a pretty disappointing season. Even though it wasn't the worst year ever for a quarterback, it just was nothing like his season the year before, and he didn't look like himself because of his injury, and there was speculation if he was even ready to play that season. Well, he did complete 60% of his passes and threw for more yards, throwing 3,203 yards. He threw less touchdowns with 16 touchdowns and more picks with 12 interceptions. RG3's final rushing stats this season was 489 rushing yards with no touchdowns and 5.7 yards a carry. In the 2014 NFL season, RG3 struggled with injuries early on, and he lost his starting spot, eventually was a third-string quarterback at one point. He went 2-5 as a starter and played in 9 games but only started 7 of them, and the team went 4-12 that season. And RG3, he did do pretty well with completing the ball, but he threw really bad that season as well, giving up 6 interceptions, only throwing 4 touchdowns. He did complete 69% of his passes, throwing 1,694 yards, but RG3 did not look like the same quarterback that he was, and it was clear that the Redskins were giving up on him. And his rushing stats that season were only 176 rushing yards with 1 touchdown and 4.6 yards a carry. In the 2015 season, RG3 got hurt in week 2 of the preseason against the Lions, suffering a concussion. And when he came back to health, he was the 3rd-string quarterback, and he even was practicing at safety on the scout team. He didn't play a single game for the Redskins that season, and he was eventually released on March 7th, 2016. RG3 would sign with the Cleveland Browns for the 2016 NFL season. Now, this Browns team was one of the worst teams in history. They're not the 0-16 Browns, but they were the season before that, the 1-15 Browns. RG3 got hurt pretty early on, and he would eventually come back. but he would only play in 5 games, and he did start in 5 games. And hey, he did win a game. He went 1-4 that season, which by Brown standards, especially against Deshaun Kaiser standards the next season, that was pretty good. Not really, though. He only completed 59% of his passes, only throwing 886 yards with 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And rushing, he did rush for 190 yards and did average 6.1 yards a carry along with 2 touchdowns. RG3 would end up getting released by the Browns in that offseason. RG3 would take a year off from football before signing with the Baltimore Ravens to be a backup quarterback in the 2018 season. RG3 only got to play 3 games in the 2018 season for Baltimore. Well, he was a backup, so that really explains it. And he only threw 6 passes total, completing 33% of them and only throwing 21 yards. RG3 returned to the Baltimore Ravens in the 2019 season, and he played in 7 games, starting 1 of them, and was 1-0 as a starter that season. He completed 61% of his passes, throwing 225 yards with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, and he is 1-0 as a starter. And he rushed 70 yards that season with no touchdowns and 3.5 yards a carry. Unfortunately, the once promising young star coming out of Baylor, who was a Heisman winner, is now going to be a backup quarterback, most likely the rest of his NFL career. Which, don't get me wrong, he's still there, and I'm glad he's there. He used to be one of my favorite college football players because he was so electric, and I loved his rookie season at Washington, even though I'm not a Redskins fan. I think a lot of the blame for where he's at now has to be at the Redskins training staff and Mike Shanahan. The Redskins training staff forced him to play hurt multiple times, which he never got over that. He never came back from those injuries 100%, and he kept on getting hurt. And, he's a guy who relied on his running and creating more plays because he's a mobile quarterback with a pretty good arm. And, well, long story short, it did not do it good to him at all, and unfortunately, he suffered for that. And to the point of Mike Shanahan, he didn't want RG3 on the team. He wanted Kirk Cousins. That's why they drafted 2 quarterbacks that season. Don't get me wrong. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's a Pro Bowler. He did pretty good with the Vikings this past season, even though he is very bad against teams above 500 and in primetime games, as he has not won a game in prime time. Mike Shanahan loved Kirk Cousins, and he wanted him to be the future of the Redskins, which he did get his wish. Well, guys, that's the end of the video. Remember to smash that like button, turn on the post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. B. Kelly out.